are you holding up?
Oh, you know, lots of self-soothing.
What, did something happen?
Oh, I can't remember anything in the past week. Can you?
Something. I could have asked, or I could have talked to any number of governments spying on your phone, you know.
Oh my God, there's no telling.
There's no telling.
I'm so happy to have you here. You are incredible. You won a Pulitzer Prize for your reporting on the Me Too movement. And now you're working on this documentary, Surveilled, which is terrifying, mind you. And I don't want to sound paranoid, but
who's watching?
do you think we're being recorded right now?
Nah, this totally private.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank God. Thank God. No, it kind of shook me to my core to watch it.
Yeah.
And you were actually the target of covert surveillance when you were doing your reporting on Harvey Weinstein. What happened? How did you know about that?
I was, and that was a mix of old-fashioned human surveillance, like dudes staking out my apartment, and some high-tech, they're tracking my geolocation data through my phone. And look, that's mild stuff in comparison to the technology in this film.
That sounds cartoony almost, like they were sitting in a white van eating a cheesesteak.
Yeah, old gumshoes. This is scarier, more insidious stuff. Technology like Pegasus is the example we use in the film, where I get cameras into where it's coded and I look at the impact on the ground around the world, where in one Western democracy after another, you know, Spain, Poland, Greece, we're seeing this being used against political dissidents, against activists, against journalists. So my own experience is being trailed and fearing my reporting was not going to come out because sources would be intimidated really gave me this little window into this much larger issue where I just know that surveillance means shrinking space for democratic expression. We've all got to worry about that.
And this is a growing trend. This technology is it's becoming more and more booming as time goes on. So walk us through the process of how this type of technology works and who's using it.
It's a booming multi-billion-dollar industry. And the biggest companies like to claim that they sell this only to governments. So you have governments, whether they're repressive regimes in the developing world or they're Western democracies that just don't have the capacity that, say, a CIA has, that are buying this up. But the interesting thing is also United States government offices are buying this up. And actually, in recent months, we saw, for instance, ICE, our immigration enforcement agency, buy a really powerful Israeli private spyware made by a private company, a company called Paragon. So they've got that now. We don't know how they're going to use that. Donald Trump is coming in, and privacy law experts and immigration lawyers I'm talking to are saying there really aren't clearly defined restraints on whether that just turns this country into an Orwellian surveillance state where any text could be a thing that gets you retaliated against, maybe if you're someone the government doesn't like, deported if you're someone awaiting an immigration hearing. This is frightening stuff that could really affect lives.
There was a part of your documentary that stuck with me. You were speaking with a U.S. government official for the State Department, and he was saying he believed very much in the use of Pegasus and was saying it serves great purposes in terms of national security. But in the same breath, he said that you cannot put the technology back in the genie bottle, and anything that can be used for nefarious reasons will be.
Yeah, look, there are legitimate law enforcement applications for this kind of tech, certainly theoretically. In practice, I've seen cases where I get the argument. But the dangers are so great. It is a case where we can't put the genie back in. And in that sense, it's like nukes. It's like any kind of weapon of mass destruction. And in fact, people at various companies that make this kind of spyware would make that comparison over and over again. Well, we're just like a new kind of arms dealer. It's not our fault that there's not a Geneva Convention equivalent for this kind of technology. You guys regulate it. We're just like living by the rules of the game, selling this stuff. But what we see over and over again is when this crops up, like in the film, I go to Barcelona and I find a big community of politicians and activists, peaceful people who are just expressing themselves, who were spied on by the Spanish government. What we see over and over again is it's linked to violent crackdowns. In that case, there were arrests around this. We've seen more extreme cases, like Pegasus was found on phones around Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist who was murdered in Saudi Arabia. So I think this is something where you might think to yourself, like, it's not going to affect me. Why? They don't want my nudes. Like, what? What is on my phone?
Well, that's true. No one does want my nudes. I've tried to push them on people, and no one will
Well, we are going to work on that self-esteem issue, you know. You're going to get that validation probably from a Western government that's been corrupted by surveillance technology. They will want your nudes.
I'll take it where I can get it.
But the thing is, you could fall into one of these dragnets. In the film, there are just innocent bystanders we talk to who aren't political at all, and suddenly they're getting hacked. And, like, maybe they're a doctor, and it's their patient's sensitive information, and you don't know how that's going to be weaponized by people with nefarious intent. So the thing that I'm working on a new print piece on this right now for The New Yorker, where I write, and the thing I've been
Never
told...
heard of it.
It's a, quaint, a cute little publication called The New Yorker. An example, by the way, of the dying art of journalism. Please support journalism, everyone.
Please.
It's important right now. We need it. The New Yorker does great work. And I just keep getting told by experts in this technology, if our government doesn't curtail the use of this, and there's a lot of skepticism that this incoming administration will, you won't know if you're on some target list. You won't know if your phone is being hacked or how that data is being used. So I think it's easy to see this as a distant issue, but what we're seeing around the world is it can come for anyone, and we should really worry about it because it does shrink the space for democracy. If we can't express ourselves freely without being watched, if reporters can't guard their sources at a time when Donald Trump is threatening to imprison reporters who protect their sources, if it's much harder for me to do my work, that's a much worse environment for the will of the people being expressed.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping people see the movie and they get like, okay, this is actually something we should freak out about a little bit.
Yeah, for the love of God, watch the movie. Watch the movie.
And restart your phone every day. That's one practical piece of advice. Because a lot of forms of this kind of spyware will be foiled by a reboot. As benign, that seems so banal, but it really is like a good step to take. To keep everything updated is the other thing.
That's
this all
what
seems obvious.
So things that people can do at home, regular citizens can do at home. Turn your phone off every day.
Yep.
Throw your smartphone in the river and use a flip phone.
Yeah. Put it right in the microwave. Get that adult flip phone ready. And honestly, if you care about this issue, write to your representative. Call in and say, hey, legislators, we really do need this to be regulated.
There was a part in your documentary where I literally watched a guy wrap his laptop in tinfoil.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was just something that people said, but he was wrapping it like a baked potato and transporting it. Is that where we're at right now? Are we going to have to start doing that? Truly,
that is what activists are doing in some of these places. Now, experts vary on exactly how effective the whole tinfoil approach is. I'm not saying you can really rely on that for security. We need better policies, not just better tinfoil.
Right.
That said, it is supposed to theoretically create a Faraday cage like you get in an elevator when you lose reception. And in that case, in the film, there are these investigators racing to find a live example of an infection so they can reverse engineer this particular kind of spyware. And it did actually work. They were able to get the data off that laptop and engineer a patch to foil that spyware company, at least momentarily.
Incredible. There is this sort of prevailing attitude in America of, if I'm not doing anything wrong, who cares if I'm being spied on? What's misguided about Americans having that attitude?
Well, like we just talked about, this is a set of policies that affect all of our rights. The moment that journalists can't do their work without their sources in the government being exposed, you wouldn't have the Pentagon Papers. You wouldn't have Watergate. The moment activists can't say, hey, I object to a policy without potentially being spied on, like they have been in a lot of these Western democracies I look at in my print reporting and in this film, you don't have dissent, and you have authoritarians with a firmer grip on power. So regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, you should want dissent and the ability to resist freely without interference that's born of surveillance. And we've just seen the story over and over again. When this technology encroaches, it's not fine. It's not just your nudes. It's your safety. People are getting targeted and they're getting hurt. And discourse evaporates really rapidly.
You are doing such important, brave work. I can't even imagine the level of stress that you must experience day in and day out. What do you do to escape, to take care of yourself? Do you binge watch old episodes of West Wing, or what do you do?
just throwing that phone right in the river like you proposed. Could have my little Anne Hathaway End of Devil Wears Prada moment, just whoop in the fountain. I wish sometimes, but you know, I'm really proud to be able to do the work of journalism at a time like this, when we have a leader coming in who has threatened to lock up journalists who don't reveal sources. We need journalists who won't reveal sources, and we need sources who will continue to blow the whistle. And I'm very lucky, you know, I write for a place that believes in that supports that. You know, HBO's putting out this documentary, so there are still people telling these stories.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of that, and, you know, to de-stress, I'll just have to play a lot of Mario Kart, you know?
Well, there you go. That's what we have. Well, we are so incredibly grateful for your work. Thank you for all that you do. We are beyond grateful. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.